So it's August 27 today, and I'm out on the property where we had planted switchgrass last year, miscanthus a few years ago, and planted milo this year. And since we just got done planting our food plots here about a week ago, and I'm just doing a last fertilization and some camera placement here today, I thought it'd be a good time to just come out here and do a quick update on all three of those and show you what kind of growth we got and what kind of time frame and how we dealt with weed control and all that good stuff. So anyway, I am at the far end of the food plot here. We got the blind way on the other side over here, and then the miscanthus runs all the way down the north line, get to the corner, and it runs down the road right over there. So basically we have switchgrass going all the way around this food, and in the center here is where we have our 5-way blend. And then bordering that between the switchgrass and the 5-way blend, we have a strip of clover, chicory, Seclusion 360 from John at Northwoods. I'd say that's probably about 15 feet wide, and it goes all the way around the 5-way blend. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to walk around and show you the switchgrass, then we'll walk along the miscanthus, we'll show you that, and then we'll end up by the blind and finally show you how the milo turned out. So anyway, this switchgrass right here was planted this May. So being August right now, that's about 3 months. And this switchgrass is generally up to my thigh or my waist. So in 3 months, we got a pretty good stand of switchgrass. And I just want to show you something here that we did as a test. I left one strip that I did not spray with stinger. So this strip right here, this should all be switchgrass going up to here. This switchgrass here was planted last year in August, so this is 1-year-old switchgrass, which is up to my chin. And then we decided to take this out of food, and we were going to put switchgrass in here as well. So we planted this switchgrass in May, so 3 months old, but I did not spray where you see these tall weeds. And I just wanted to show the difference between taking care of the weeds with an herbicide and just letting nature take its course. So you can see we got way more weeds than we want. Probably going to have to, deal with this next year. It's just a little skinny strip between the main part of the switchgrass and the woods. So not a big deal, but yeah, Stinger really did a great job on taking care of weeds. But, even in here, we have some weeds. We've got some horse nettle right there. We've got some clover in here. We've got some, looks like some chickweed, but not a lot of mare's tail, which has been a problem on this property. So, really happy with this stuff. As you can see, we're looking at waist high, so not too bad. And then we come out here to what we call the warning track. This warning track is the strip of clover and chicory that runs all the way around the 5-way and runs on the inside of the switchgrass. Now we'll make our way toward the road, and this is where we have the switchgrass that we planted a year ago. Basically, it's been planted a year and 1 week ago today. And as you can see, this one's up to my chest. This one right here, this one's up to my chin. So the way I dealt with weeds in here this year is in May I came in and sprayed some Quin Star at about 8 ounces per acre. And then I came back about a month later, 6 weeks later, and sprayed Stinger herbicide. And both times I used a non-ionic surfactant as well, which really helps. But as you can see, we've got very little weeds out here. I mean, this is a really pure stand of switchgrass, and you can see what the weeds look like. This is the mare's tail that the Stinger just smoked it. So these mare's tails are absolutely fried. It doesn't look like any of them are trying to come back. Now, we do have a little bit of horse nettle in here, but they are not thriving at all. We get to some of these areas, and you can see right here we have a little bit of an open area. Not much switchgrass right there for whatever reason, but that's okay because that could be a nice open spot for deer to bed. And so as we move through here, you can see We do have a little bit of weed in here, but it's very few and far between. Right here we have well, this is a mare's tail that probably got missed by the herbicide. You can see the difference, this mare's tail and this one here. So yeah, for whatever reason, you know, could be where the spray nozzle was, might have been right between a couple of spray nozzles and it just didn't get hit enough. But I would say 95% of this mare's tail has been smoked. So stinger, I love stinger. Now another thing that we drilled into this blend here with the switchgrass, we used 4 pounds an acre of switchgrass and we used 2 pounds an acre of big blue stem. Here's another example of the big blue stem. You can see it's in the flowering stage right now. And so the bees are really active on this stuff, but you can see the big blue stem is, you know, up to the top of my head. Here's one that's over my head. So really nice stuff, pretty stout as well. But now you can really see the switchgrass. I'm in a low spot where, you know, it's generally a little bit wetter, and yeah, this switchgrass is up to my forehead. Here's some right here. We got a switchgrass right here that's, well, it's over my head. So, you know, not bad for 1 year and a week. And so now we get over here to the miscanthus. And this miscanthus was planted 3 years ago. And you can see how tall this stuff is. It's way over my head. And of course, this is where there is no walnut trees, right? We got the walnut trees over there and not much to speak of. Among the miscanthus, you can see some mare's tail right there. That's what the Butarac 200 took care of. And so, yeah, Butarac is a form of 2,4-D. Does not kill grasses, but it does kill broadleaves. So as we're moving on closer to the corner here, you can see this miscanthus is still well over my head. And we do have this little gap here, as you can see, between the switchgrass and the miscanthus. And yeah, are we going to get deer laying in here? Yeah, probably. You know, they can lay in right here too. You can actually kind of see a trail going across the street to the big alfalfa field. So no big deal. It's not really meant to be a fence, right? So here's another deer trail going right through here, going in to the north into the neighbor's cornfield. And you can see here they're coming right through, going into the switchgrass. As you look over top of this field of switchgrass, you just really don't see any weeds. And next year, you know, this switchgrass ought to get up to about, I'd say, you know, 7, 8, 9 feet maybe. So, and granted, you know, this has been a really good year for growing. We've had timely rains. We went through a little dry spell here in August, but other than that, it's been a really good growing season. So this is where we come in off the road. We come in through here, and this is our tractor lane to get past the wall of miscanthus, and it takes us into the field that we can, you know, do our planting. And then we also use this trail to access the blind. We have switchgrass right here along the north edge, and that was planted at 15 pounds an acre. So that's really, really thick. And, you know, when this field here is in soybeans, that's going to be a short crop. And we wanted the screen here of switchgrass so that as we walk down to the blind, the deer and the soybeans won't see us access the blind. So this year, being in corn, obviously it's not an issue. And there was one day I was taking an ATV through here and actually kicked up a little 6-point that was bedded right down here in the miscanthus. And instead of running that way, where the switchgrass was still kind of short, he ran this way and jumped into the corn. So, like I said before in a previous video, are we going to get deer bedded in this miscanthus? Yeah, probably. But, you know, we're going to work on getting it thickened up by moving some rhizomes and whatnot from the existing miscanthus. And at least now we've got something to work with where we can fill in thin spots. Here we got an apple tree right here. Is on the neighbor's property. So that's kind of a, it's kind of a bummer where we got to walk by a beautiful apple tree on the way to the blind, but That's on their property, nothing we can do about that. It is what it is. The switchgrass here along the north line was planted also. Actually, this was planted in June. So not May like the other area was over there. And you can see right here, being real sandy soil, that switchgrass isn't doing near as well. And then you get down there where it starts to get into the low spot and really takes off. A little bit better soil. So right here we have the tractor lane that goes out into the food plot. This right here continues on to the blind. And so we have the switchgrass, or they have the miscanthus here on my right. And then this right here in front of me is the HD screen, a hybrid sorghum from Northwoods. And this was planted, I believe, the second week of June. And so in about 2.5 months, I mean, you can see this is 9 feet tall already. So now as we move out to the food plot here, first I want to show you, this is the lane where we have our tractor access. And so the miscanthus goes back down toward the road. This continues down past the blind. So we have this little opening right here, but this opening is about 25 yards from the blind. So as deer come from the north side, they come out of that swamp down there. They come up through this low valley here. They kind of bypass this bush and they jump the fence or go through the fence. And you can see this 3-wire fence right here, this old fence, is stopped. And so this is why they come right through here. And this is why we put our tractor lane right here at 25 yards. Every deer enters right through here. And so if you're wondering, well, shoot, you know, you guys are accessing from the road and you're walking right through here, aren't the deer going to smell your footprints? Well, yeah, exactly. Because if these deer come from the north or from the south, either which way they're going, if they encounter our footprints right here, I mean, they're going to stop, right? They're going to stop, smell, oh man, what's that? Well, by then it's too late. We already got an arrow through them 25 yards away from that blind. We're going to walk out here into the field. Now, you can see we have switchgrass right in front of me. We don't have food on the other side of this gap here. So we wanted to make sure we took this switchgrass from over here and we run it along this miscanthus and we run it past the tractor gap so that when we're walking down this trail and we have to get into the blind, we're going to walk right through here, but this switchgrass is going to screen us from the rest of the food over there. So that's why we extended the switchgrass right here in front of the gap. And then we just take this right along the miscanthus. And then this finally takes us out into the food. So you can see that the miscanthus is getting there. And some of this miscanthus is up to the bottom of the platform. Except when you get right here, for some reason, it just did not do as well. We got some that are just sitting there and they're not really growing very much. So what we're going to be able to do next year or in the spring is we're going to bust up some of the rhizomes and split them, and then we're going to take them and plant them in these thin spots right here so that next year this blind is really going to be a lot more concealed, because you know, if I'm standing in a food like this, you can see somebody going up and down that ladder, and that's just not that's not acceptable at all. Something else I'll just quick show you here, and that is this little strip right here. We decided to put this into switchgrass as well. We figured, you know, man, if this switchgrass can get 8-9 feet, that's just going to be another screen to that blind. That'll just help us get down that ladder even more, because, you know, in the fall when the miscanthus starts to wilt, you know, turn brown, it's not going to be quite as thick. You're going to be able to see through it a little bit better. That switchgrass is going to help even more. This right here is all clover chicory. We have another lane right here that goes down to what we call a little valley plot. That valley plot is the first thing they hit when they come out of that swamp. And then they make their way up, and then they hit more clover and chicory before they hit our 5-way blend. And it basically points right at the blind, so it kind of helps us to be able to see down to that little valley plot. Now, what we have here is we've got some oats that I broadcast, and I always like to plant oats when I plant clover chicory as a nurse crop. So that's doing very well, and I can see we've got some clover chicory coming up already. So that's going to work out well. We did replant more clover chicory in this stand of seclusion that we planted last fall. We have our 5-way blend over to the right. We have our clover chicory over to the left, and we put an exclusion cage in the clover chicory, and we have an exclusion cage here in the 5-way blend, and it's close enough to the camera on the blind so that we can monitor the progress of the food just from the trail camera pictures. So this 5-way blend is a little bit different this year. We normally went with oats, rye, peas, crimson, and a little bit of radish. This year we're going to change it up. Well, we have changed it up because the landowner is so busy in the spring and early summer that he really doesn't have time to deal with rye and crimson so that they don't reseed themselves again, right? So what we did is we went with an awnless wheat. Now, instead of just going with a regular winter wheat, deer won't eat those seed heads the following spring because they got that beard on them. And it, I guess it, hurts the deer's mouth and whatnot. So we went with an awnless wheat, does not have that beard. Next spring, it'll be a great food source, and we planted really heavy. We planted that 5-way blend at about 150 pounds per acre. So in that 5-way blend this year, we went with oats, awnless winter wheat, winter peas, and then a red clover instead of the crimson, and radish. Now we went with red clover instead of the crimson because red clover tends to feed deer longer into the summer, where crimson will actually become unpalatable much sooner, and crimson is way better at reseeding itself. So by going with red clover instead, we don't have the urgency to deal with the seed heads of crimson wanting to reseed themselves again. And it's going to, the red clover is going to feed deer longer into the summer. So we're going to try that, and definitely will, give you guys updates again next year. So that brings us here to the milo, and I am really pleasantly surprised with this stuff. At first it was, man, are we going to get 3 feet? Are we going to get 4 feet? Well, right here, it's probably some of the worst spots right here. It's kind of thin. Nutrition might not be as great. But man, when we get down here a little bit further, it's thicker and it's a lot taller. Some of these seed heads are over my head. So, I'm 6'5", so here we are. That's at least 6'5" there. But then we have some that are, consistently at about shoulder height. So that's probably, 5 feet. But 5 feet is plenty for, hiding deer from each other. And the nice thing is when you're over here on this side of the milo, and the deer have just come out of the swamp behind me, which is starting to turn nice fall colors. They come up here into this clover chicory, and the first strip of milo is actually screening them from the road already. And then another, 10 yards over, we have our second screen of milo. So we've noticed on camera that these deer just seem to be a lot more comfortable on this side of the milo because, yeah, there's just more security to that big, scary open field and the road. So really liking milo. I mean, it's really a great option for guys that want to split up their food plots. If you don't want to do anything permanent like switchgrass or miscanthus, if you planted the HD screen before, milo is almost the same process. You've got to wait till the soil gets up to about 60, 65 degrees. Whatever planting method has been successful for you on the HD screen, you can do the same thing here with milo. So really like it. And about a week ago, the bees were really hitting the heads big time because it was in the flowering stage. But now it's probably in the dough stage. So if we, it's a little bit of milky substance inside those seed heads. And when that turns hard, that's when I suspect the deer are going to start hitting it. So that's probably going to be our final update for 2024. We're going to just leave the property sit now. We're going to give it over to the deer. We've got our cameras in place. Unfortunately, we had to take down our Reolink camera off this property because there just isn't good enough cell service here. It's a little bit too remote. Even sometimes on my cell phone, I'm talking to somebody and it cuts out. And so the cell service is kind of sketchy. And I'm going to do a video about Reolink cameras on food plots. I really feel that Reolink is tailor-made for food plots, but you got to have fairly good service, average to above. But this is below average service. And, the SIM card that I use in those Reolinks is called the triple play card, which means that it'll automatically connect to either AT&T, T-Mobile, or Verizon, and it'll do it on its own. For food plots, I think it's just a great option for monitoring what's going on. So that's going to do it for updates here in 2024. We're going to have some trail cam pictures and videos to share with you as well. But if you got anything out of this video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. And hopefully in 2024, you can have a great successful hunt. Hopefully your food plots have turned out okay. And we will see you on the next video.